Saga of the Moon Priestess is basically a Game Boy era Zelda game. It is easy to play and made for all ages, and just from a few minutes of gameplay, you will know precisely what you will get from it. There is little to say of the characters and story. At a glance, it seems like it might be subverting the typical save the princess trope, due to the main character being a girl and the prince being kidnapped. However, it's skin deep, and since the reveal shock of Metroid decades ago, it really has no impact now. That is the full story: save the prince. There are no twists, minimal text, and about as much depth as one would expect from an NES adventure game. Graphically, it is retro but colorful, being functional and showing enemies and projectiles, having very clear zone differences between standard adventure areas like a desert and ice zone, and the soundtrack and effects are fine. The controls are fairly smooth. You move on turning and are quite slow, while your tools lock you in place and you cannot reuse some until the animation for the projectile finishes. Some foes, especially the tall ones or ones that float, have deceptive hitboxes, and while your spear can hit 2 squares if you're positioned right, it often will not. Your slow movement means foes that move faster than you can get extra hits on you, and invincibility basically lasts as long as the knockback, so it is easy to take back-to-back damage, which can be fairly significant. There is potential for getting into a position where you can get locked into chain damage. However, it always stems from player error, and I never felt like the game was unfair or unavoidable entirely. There are a few themed dungeons, mostly revolving around their tool, and while it does have a visual theme such as ice or desert, it has little to do with the enemies or puzzles. Get a bomb, and that dungeon will have crumbling walls. But the ice dungeon does not have slippery floors or foes that can freeze you solid. Bosses require using tools, generally the tool found in that dungeon, and there are puzzles throughout both dungeons and the world map, though most of them are rudimentary. In the world, rewards include max health or weapon damage upgrades from exploration, while dungeons themselves are fairly linear in requiring you to complete most of it to find enough keys to face the boss. There's little in the way of hidden secrets. A completion run can be done with mild challenge and only another hour or 2 off the full game, which may be 4 to 6 hours to beat, and the bonuses from exploration are more a nice addition than a necessity even for a casual gamer. This is a charming retro game, fairly short and mildly challenging. If you're looking for a simpler and easier Link's Awakening, this is a decent game, but not a must-play. It is fairly forgettable by the puzzles and combat, and the story will vanish from your mind the moment you put down the controller. In terms of indie retro games, this is pretty standard, and if you are into that niche of nostalgia, you know exactly what to expect from the game footage. Saga of the Moon Priestess earns a 6 out of 10.